Well, hello there. I've been having computer problems. That's why I haven't been doing, any video time. Plus, I just haven't really felt like it. I've been taking a break. Been taking a break from the news and, all of it. So, Palestine things got me all watered up. But anyway, I just wanted to drop in, and as anyone who's listened to any of my videos knows, I'm no fan of war. I'm not a big rah-rah anything to do with the military or war, but I grew up in a military family. And when Veterans Day rolls around, I always think of my dad and my big brother and all the cats that I knew that were basically musicians that served. All but one or have unalived themselves. At this point in time, I'm pretty sure that a drummer I used to play with, Crazy Mike Trainer, I think he lives somewhere up in, I think how you pronounce that place is Tuaca Falls or something like that. I've been that way before because I have a cousin who lives up in, is it Bradenton? I'm not sure. It's a Brevard. And so I have been up. I kind of know where it is. And then my big brother, Charlie, he lives in a little town in California, about halfway between L.A. and San Francisco, called Paso Robles. He was stationed on a battleship, I believe, in whatever that Tonkin Gulf, something like that. I used to be able to rattle all this stuff off, but I'm getting pretty, not so swift up here. And there's nothing I can do about that because time just does a number on a human being, mentally and physically. Now, my big brother's doing pretty good. He's got to be pushing about 84. I haven't heard much from him lately. I need to call him and see what's up. And then I have a lot of, the dead guys. Oh, I do have a nephew who appears to be doing well. I don't see, every now and then he comes across my Facebook and I see him. He's got a family now, but he served. And I don't know much about his military experience because he doesn't like, or I'm just assuming that he doesn't want to talk to me or doesn't like talking to me. I don't know. I'm not. I think I got put into the category of his father, and that's a sad thing for me because, well, never mind. But my father, who was in the Army Air Corps, is what he went into. There was no Air Force until the beginning of World War II, or the beginning of us getting into World War II. I'm pretty sure that's when they built the Pentagon. And that's why when I was a kid, I got to go to the Pentagon, but I was only like 5 or 6. I don't know if Charlie ever got to go, but my old man worked there. And I don't know for how long either, but he was a attaché to one of the generals for the Air Force. And I don't know much about that story either. I do know that he flew B-25s out of North Africa. That was pretty much his combat history. And the one time he ever talked about it, because I asked him, what he did to get to be a full bird colonel, and he just said, well, I went in as a lieutenant and was flying planes in North Africa, and after 6 months, I was a lieutenant colonel. So there was a lot of pilots and aircraft that weren't making it. And these B-25s, I think he towed those British gliders, and he flew over, and paratroopers, American paratroopers, used those planes as well. But this was, we invaded Sicily, and I think we made short work of that, and then they went on to start taking over mainland Italy, moving their way up into the Swiss Alps. So I don't know much more about his combat career except for that. He was he had a degree in law. He was actually a lawyer, so he moved up the ranks, I think, pretty easily or pretty quickly because of that. And then doing my history research on my dad's side, I had a great uncle, Charles. I don't know, my great grandfather, I think, missed the wars, any wars, and he died young. And his mother was Potawatomi, so he was a half-breed, I would think. I guess that's a bad word, but that's what he was. So I don't know that apparently he was a lawyer as well and never got one case. But who the hell's going to hire an engine for a lawyer back in those days? And I go to the other side of my family, which are my British mother and my grandfather, who I knew very well, and he really wasn't my grandfather. He was my step-grandfather, but I knew him all my life. He's the one I called Gramps, and he's the one I helped out. So he was in the Royal Marines, engineers, and he told me a couple of World War II stories. These are pre-Americans getting involved. We didn't get involved for about 3 years after the British had been fighting, and he was at Dunkirk. And, I just recently watched that movie, Dunkirk, and I thought it was very disappointing because the description my father gave me, or my grandfather gave me, was way different than that movie. There was hundreds of thousands of men on all those beaches trying to get out of there. When the British came over across the channel, and they just got all these other, they couldn't get the bigger ships in because it was too shallow. So they did build some pontoons that went out, but basically they got just hundreds, if not thousands, of small boats to come and pick them up. But now, the Royal Engineers, he was one of the last guys to leave because it was their job to dismantle anything that was operational so that the Germans couldn't use it. I don't know if that meant blowing them up or just taking parts out or whatever they had to do. But the one story that he told me that I haven't really seen anywhere, and he told me about the Belgians. He always called them the Belgians. And I never saw him get too emotional about anything, but when he talked about those guys, he got pretty emotional. Because apparently, while the British and the British allies and whatever were being evacuated, the Belgians set up roadblocks and piled up debris to fight, and they stayed behind and they fought the Germans. And I don't think a lot of them survived it, but they gave up themselves to save all those other men. So, a little piece of history. I don't know if, that's just what he told me. I don't know if, I've never really looked into all of that, but I think my real grandfather, who was British, was a conscientious objector and actually spent a couple of years in jail in Britain because of being a conscientious objector. And to each his own. I don't fault anybody. I don't fault him for that. Not at all. I didn't go to Vietnam. I chose to not go to Vietnam. I thought that was a bullshit war. And I didn't want to kill people I didn't know or whatever. And, like I've said before, the other thing is who does the government think they are telling me I have to go do this? Now, I was going to go, but after 2 years of fighting it and going back and forth, I went to, the lottery came out, and I didn't have to go. So, anyway, this was just a shout out to everyone I know and to all those cats I knew that have taken their own lives, and there's several of them. And I'm still thinking about you guys too. I know it couldn't have been rough. I mean, it couldn't have had to be rough coming home. I don't remember. I hear all this stuff about how people were shunned by the public when they came home, and especially in California, but we never did anything like that or in any way. Matter of fact, the guys we knew, there was a guy named, I think, Mike Murphy. I'm not sure. He that poor guy. we went to go try to see him after he got back, and he was staying in his parents' guest room, and he was rolled over looking at the wall, and we were going in there, and we were just being the guy. We didn't go. We were just being the free and loose, happy-go-lucky guys that we were, and we're trying to talk. Come on, man, And every now and then he would just turn over and stare at us, not say a word. And then we went in and talked to his mother for a while, and she was really upset. She was afraid that he was going to do something to himself. So I don't know whatever happened to Mike, but I have thought about him. And a lot of these guys I've thought about. I guess in some ways I always felt guilty for not. I felt in some ways guilty for not going, but in other ways, it makes me feel, patriotic for standing up for what I believed in at the time. I went to the anti-war demonstrations, and I've been jailed, handcuffed with those plastic handcuffs, and jerked up and hit with those nightstick baton things and maced. So I guess I had I have a few battle scars, just not from Vietnam. Well, that's all. That's all I wanted to say. Shout out to everyone I know. I'm not going to get into all that, rah-rah bullshit that everybody does. And you guys did what you thought you had to do. Good for you. And I hope that you're all okay because of it and from it. And I guess, I thank you for doing what you believed in, because I would hate to think that you did that without thinking. Although they get the young ones, 17, 18-year-olds when they go in. Oh well, I better shut up. Anyway, good night and happy Veterans Day. And Mark Ramos, he didn't make it. He was another really good friend of mine. He went out of his way to stay in touch with me, because I've always been kind of a loner, and friends, okay. I've had so many friends stick it to me that I kind of stopped worrying about that. And friends are great if you're drinking and smoking weed and doing all that kind of stuff, because then you need somebody to gab at. But I don't do anything anymore, so I just gab at myself. Look at that guy. Anyway, adios and buenas noches.